So, unfortunately, we have two people who were meant to join us today but could not, but we have very able replacements. So, unfortunately, Minister Bogdanovic could not come today, but he will be replaced by Željko Rutovic, the director of the Media Directorate, so even more focused directly on the policy. And Arlem Desir, the OSCE representative of freedom of media, will be replaced by Elena Černjavska, who is a senior member of his office. So I will invite both of those people on stage, as well Alfred Lela from Politico in Albania, Minister Manchevski, the Minister of Information and Society in North Macedonia, and Esmir Milevic from N1. Please join us on stage. Anywhere that's most comfortable for you. I will be on my cube over here, so. Don't be afraid of me also. Somebody welcome here. Dobra? Good. Okay, so. Let's see, maybe we can start with Mr. Rutovic. Yesterday, we heard a very nice speech from the minister. He said Montenegro is doing everything to protect freedom of media here, but we read in the Commission report that no progress has been made for a number of years. So where is the discrepancy between the minister's speech and the Commission report? And I guess if we need, does anybody else need a translation, or now is the time?
Hvala. Dozvolite da govorim na svom jeziku. Hvala na pitanju. Pozdrav uvaženim kolegama, koleginici, cijenjenom panelu. Dozvolite da iskreno, bez kurtoazije, izrazim zadovoljstvo što imamo priliku da o ovako značajnoj temi razgovaramo ove godine u Crnoj Gori i da ne manje podijelimo iskustva, razlike, specifičnosti i sličnosti regiona kome pripadamo. Evo odmah na početku dozvolite koliko je to moguće preciznije. Ne bih rekao da se radi o razlikama, stvar je viđenja organskih politika dvaju organa, nadnacionalnog organa Europske komisije, odnosno matične vlade Crne Gore i nadležnog resora Ministarstva kulture. U tom kontekstu dozvolite da ponovim još jednom da sloboda medija se ostvaruje kroz širi institucionalni okvir i niz resorskih, multiresorskih politika, tako da stvar nije jednoznačna, da određeni elementi tog procesa više ili manje utiču na vrednosni karakter te ocjene kojoj Crna Gora svakako pridaje adekvatnu pažnju, obzir prema njoj i u tom kontekstu preduzima konkretne radnje ustavnog, institucionalnog i praktičnog karaktera na zaista serioznom obezbeđenju onoga o čemu je jučer govorio ministar, slobodnog ambijenta i bezbjednog za nesmetani rad medija i medijskih kuća, kao i praktičnih politika koje realizuju oblast slobode izražavanja kao temeljnog ljudskog prava. Ne bih secirao pojedinačne politike, ali iz ugla resora iz kog dolazi gospodin Bogdanović kao i moja malenkost matično zaduženi za normativni aspekt, jesmo stvarna i ustavna adresa za posmatranje normativnog okvira i obezbeđenja ambijenta u kojem djeluju mediji. Podlačim da je stvar šire karaktera i da se ostvaruje nizom multiresorskih politika i vjerujem da niko od ovdje prisutnih od matičnih predstavnika vlada zemalja Zapadnog Balkana manje više ne vjeruje da je to brz, jednoznačan i efikasan proces koji se završava, da kažemo, u relativno kratkim rokovima. Radi se ipak o jednom procesu, radi se o visokim standardima, radi se o temeljnom pravu bez koga nema ni demokratije, nema ni građanina i u tom kontekstu da smo zreli sa sveukupnim standardima mi bi već bili članica Europske unije. Znači radi se o procesu i adekvatnom ispunjavanju obaveza ne samo formalnih pregovaračke agende, nego stvaranje zaista realnog terena i ambijenta za slobodu kao najširi pojam. Hvala.
Hvala. Minister Manchevski, your country became famous in the world for hosting one of the capitals of fake news. Now your government has been working to address some of the issues in freedom of media. You have a draft media strategy. Um, but I'm curious, can you tell us a bit more about the strategy for people that don't know? And can you also tell us what have the institutions done or been preparing to do? Have there been any legal actions yet for those people who have been chugging out fake news to meddle in my elections and elsewhere in the world? Thanks. And thank you very much for being the only minister willing to come here today. I think, this is one of the most important.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm a minister, of course, on a temporary assignment. I'm an electronics and telecommunications engineer, so this thing will pass. Um, so the name of this panel is Policy Meets Media. Hello. Glad to meet you. So I already told you I'm generally an engineer guy that comes from technology, not professional politician. I would like to consider myself not to be one. But also to introduce myself, a bit more than 2 years ago, the attempt for my murder was aired live on TV. This was 27th of April 2017. And some of the media were calling for it. So I'm going to focus on the questions that you've asked, but also would like to touch base about what can we do for the future. Now, the progress report of the European Commission says that we've made good progress in the media sphere, but whether this is enough, no, I don't think that anyone would agree. The external impression, of course, is always good to hear, and we are very glad to read these words. But I'm just going to tell you a story. 2 days ago, I was taking a taxi through Podgorica, and the taxi driver told me how much he loved Skopje and how clean and green the city is. Now, there are people from North Macedonia who are laughing because we think our city is filthy, is dirty, and we don't have enough green. And it's a matter of impression and what we think is enough and should we do more. So I strongly believe that we can do much, much more than what we have been doing so far. On the legal basis, we have adopted the new law on audio and audiovisual media services, which is generally regulating the, I would say, traditional media, electronic traditional media, not touching base with the online media. And this is where we became famous for the online media, for the spreading of fake news through digital platforms. Since, again, I already told you, I come from the industry, I really think the internet is a wonderful tool that allows us to communicate, to be much more efficient, to do many other things. But it can also be a weapon, yes. But also, in the book can be a weapon if it's thrown to someone's head. So it's actually the internal fight between the good and the evil that is happening everywhere. Now it's happening in the digital sphere, in the electronic media, online media, social media as well. So we need to get organized. I really believe that all people in this hall are from the good side. So you're the good people. And these are the modern, I strongly believe that the journalists are the modern freedom fighters. So we need to provide additional tools and weapons, if you want, to them so that they can safeguard the freedom that we have in our society, whether it's higher or lower, depends, again, on the impression we have. We have much of a debate in North Macedonia about self-regulation and whether we should have additional regulation, especially for the online media. Me as a minister, I always have the position that it is not the government should be driving these reforms. It should come as a recommendation from the media stakeholders, from the media organizations, from the journalists, from the people who are experts. We are there to provide them with the means. We are there to participate, but we should not be driving these reforms. I strongly have to say, still believe in self-regulation, but I have to be sincere enough to say that I don't see much of the results. And we've had several cases in the past several months where we could see that we might need something else. So from a strong believer in self-regulation, and I've had very interesting debate with some Macedonian journalists here on Friday night, I'm kind of shifting towards the position and maybe we should take into consideration some legal regulation. Again, in coordination, in communication with the media stakeholders. Because the other side, the evil, the bad people are organized and they put money and they use money. And it happened, yes, it was told for the US elections, it happened for Brexit, it happened for the referendum campaign in North Macedonia, where there was an attempt, successful or not, to boycott the referendum and to spread anti-NATO and anti-EU rhetorics throughout the country. So, provided we don't do this, they will. They will not wait for legislation or self-regulation. They're doing it on every day. I don't know if you've seen, now it's very popular, The Great Hack, the documentary on Netflix, saying that the Trump campaign used $1 million daily for social media psychological profiling targeted posts. We, on the other hand, in North Macedonia, for instance, we went from one extreme that our media was heavily influenced and financed by the government, by the state, to another extreme that now we don't invest any single euro into the media. We don't advertise. There are some municipalities local municipalities that do finance some of the local media, but it's a very small portion. So essentially, we do not, there is no money transfer from the central government to any of the media. We agreed together with the media stakeholders that last year that there should be some support for printed media because they're dying out. This is what we've agreed, and this is the only support we provide to the media. But now we've also, it is raised discussion all over again, and we've heard some of the speakers yesterday that the state should support independent media, should support investigative journalism. So there has to be some, again, money transfer from the state under certain criteria to independent media, to investigative journalism. Of course, we must be cautious that this will not have any strings attached, that there will be no influence because of this money. And there are ways how to do it. I'm a strong believer as well in technology. So we've all, again, I'm under the influence of the documentary, of the Great Hack. So we all say that Cambridge Analytica was something that should not have happened. It's an intrusion in our privacy and everything. But it's not called anymore. Cambridge Analytica does not exist. But there are other companies who are doing that, and it happens. Now, most probably it happens. Your profiles are being hit with targeted messages and content that you will see. My question is, should we also not use these mechanisms? Should we use these mechanisms to spread the truth? Because we are now saying, no, this is not correct, this is not good, and we should not use these methodologies, but someone else is, and they're giving results, while we are waiting to see what can we do with regulation, self-regulation, and so forth and so on. It might sound controversial, but again, provided we don't do something and fast, it is evolving and it's not waiting for us. And it will become even worse. The spread of fake news through digital platforms, all sorts of social media. So we should really ask ourselves, first of all, is self-regulation enough? And how fast can we see the results? Or we need some kind of regulation. Do we need state financing to the media? Or we should definitely abandon the idea. Then the market will regulate itself. This is not good news for many media. They will be closed. And journalists will stay without jobs. It's a fact. It's a hard truth, but it's a fact. So again, I think I'm in a phase personally um, that I'm transforming from one position, from one point of view, slowly maybe to opening my mind to something else. There always will be, a chance, an opportunity for someone who has bad intentions to misuse the system. And this is where you come in. The media is the safeguard. There is no better safeguard, protecting mechanism for the freedom and for the legal system than the public. The public is the best safeguard mechanism for all the wrongdoings that are happening in our societies. So I think that these discussions are very useful. We really do need to hear each other. I was listening to you these days, and I'm talking to our journalists in North Macedonia all the time. But maybe it's time to not end the discussions, but to take some action. And this is where I think that we should follow, as governments, the media stakeholders, the professional organizations, the journalists. We have the means, and you need to tell us how to use those means, how to use those mechanisms. We are, in this region, unfortunately, the level of on the personal integrity of everyone, regardless, is low. And if we didn't have this problem, that we cannot say no in some situations, we wouldn't be discussing about these issues maybe today. We cannot regulate everything. But provided we agree and we trust each other, we can move forward. There will always going to be bad people who are going to try to break the system and go around it. But provided we, again, have a little bit of faith in each other, I think we will definitely change things, and the taxi driver from Podgorica will know about it as well. Thank you.
He doesn't have the people on my Facebook feed that I have complaining with their photos. Thank you very much, Mr. Minister, that you've provided quite a lot of ground for discussion that I hope will include the wider audience, and put out quite a lot of topics, and your willingness again to come here and to engage consistently with journalists is should be emulated, let's say. Alfred, I want to go to you and ask, how does the media policy landscape look in Albania? Do you engage in robust discussions with the government, for example, over the formulation of this new draft media law that's been much discussed?
For one thing, it is ongoing, and it is chaotic, and of course, most of the gentlemen and ladies from Albania are part of that, ongoing discussion. And since it is ongoing, there is room for us, to say some things and try to probably detour the politicians' decision a little bit, or to a certain extent. It is the same challenge in Albania as the minister from North Macedonia. I almost said Macedonia. No, I have to say North Macedonia to be politically correct. It is self-regulation against regulation. And I'm going to try to make a point, or my point here. I think we should give up on treating concepts, terms, or philosophies as they were God-given truths. For example, self-regulation versus regulation. I know there is two schools of thought. It has to be the European way, only self-regulation with no interference from the state, and then there is the proponents of the other philosophy. It should be regulated by somebody, in this case by the government or the governments. I think there should be we should agree to a solution that kind of mixes them both, finds a way in between, because we have to ask ourselves, has the self-regulation worked so far? To a certain extent it has, but very minimal steps have been made towards improving the media landscape. Hence the landscape we're in right now. Otherwise it would have been different. We would have had different results. Knowing this and being 30 years later from this ongoing battle, we have to accommodate ourselves and our thoughts to what do we need to do. I mean, what's the next step? What's the move? What's the change? What do we need to agree on? So it has to be, in my opinion, it has to be a mixture of these two schools of thought, so to speak. We have, I don't want to start complaining now, but I think I'm going in that direction.
Please.
We are in dire straits in Albania when it comes to, and I heard yesterday the term sustainability being thrown around, and freedom of speech and the interference of government, and these are all familiar to us. Combined with which is probably not only Albania's case, combined with Trumpism, a lot of doing things Trump's way. Attacking the media, trying to find ways to deliver the fake news and the alternative facts and the so-called and being on the going on the edge of this post-truth era. Again, I don't think of any solutions. I can raise doubts. I can probably propose something. And one of the things I would like to propose, hearing yesterday this someone of the panelists that media journalists are only about breaking news. I would disagree. If the other side is breaking views, I mean, making their views available to the public in their many ways, I think journalists should be able to break their views also. So I think, and this is the role of the journalism of this century, in my opinion. We have to be intermediaries. News happening, why they happening, where they coming from, is it news, what is it? So some level of interpretation is needed, and I think this should be one of the approaches of whatever body that oversees and helps us, the Western Balkans media. The other one, in terms of sustainability, which when I hear it, I think money. I mean, that's a euphemism for money. I mean, I think there should be a change on the flow of revenue. In this case, coming because there was a sheet with our package, the money flowing to the region in order to help the media. I think it should start going towards the production as opposed to training. I think that should be a change on the philosophy. Production instead of training. Too much training going on already. Results, some are there, some aren't. And thank you for having me, that's all.
Thank you very much for coming. Too much training. This will also be an interesting jumping off point for discussion. Your fans are out in full force. Esmit, I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about how media policy in Beja shapes your work every day, and maybe a little bit of if you or if Mr. Manchevski's counterpart from Bosnia and Herzegovina was here, what would you say? What would you ask from them?
Well, let me start with this. I think that Minister Manchevski is exceptionally brave man, especially because he said that he spent the 2 days here listening and speaking, because if the other ministers were here, I believe that they would be facing firing squads from all over the region, because we all have similar problems. And I must to say, all other ministers except Minister Manchevski and Minister from Montenegro, who at least sent his replacement, should be ashamed that they are not here. Last night I tweeted to Commissioner Hahn in our exchange regarding why he's not here. I said that I'm sad that he's not here, because he could hear a lot from us here in the Western Balkans, because we all face similar problems. I heard that from Alfred. I heard that yesterday from Mihailo and from other colleagues here. The key issue here is that politicians are not listening what we are saying about our own industries and our own needs. For years and years and years, in Bosnia you will hear journalists that we are asking for change of a penal code to include that attack on journalists are attacks on official person. So the legal consequences must be much harder. Yesterday we heard here Commissioner Hahn speaking about the rule of law. Can anyone explain to me how we can speak about the rule of law in Bosnia and Herzegovina when attempted murder on our colleague in Banja Luka, Vladimir Kovacevic, was in the first instance sentenced to 4 years in prison? For God's sake, that man can be in 2 years out and can repeat the same thing again. We have some cases in Western Balkans, especially in Bosnia, not resolved for years, years and years. And it's the same situation all the time. And we are speaking about rule of law. It doesn't work. For example, yesterday we heard here so many times, I don't know how many times we mentioned freedom of expression and freedom of media. Just a quick example. You know, when the presidency of Bosnia and Herzegovina is having a regular session, you know where the journalists are waiting for possible statements by members of presidency? In a park, outside of the building. Often in the winter time, on the temperatures of minus several degrees centigrade, and in the mud. Why? Because members of presidency don't hold a regular press conferences. And that's the problem for us, because we can't do our job properly. Even in the last few months, we had a problem that journalists were not able to enter a House of Parliaments, Parliamentary Assembly of Bosnia and Herzegovina, if someone doesn't deem that that event, which is on a public schedule, is supposed to be open for journalists. So even if College of Presidents of Parliament is having a session, we can't enter the building because someone in some services says it's not possible to happen. So those are all problems which we need to fix if we want to move forward towards European Union. Also, the European Union, especially whoever is next Commissioner for Enlargement, and HRVP, we know that most possibly that's going to be current Minister Borrell, need to start pressuring much harder people who are working here in the Western Balkans. Because if we want standards, we need to start pressuring them from the outside, because it seems that the internal pressure doesn't work. And we have a situation as we have, as Alfred said, the situation with the Prime Minister Rama in Albania. We heard that from Mihailo yesterday regarding situation here in Montenegro. And we have, I must say that my colleagues in Belgrade, in N1 Serbia, we have the same problems with the politicians over there, because over the last few months we had a situation that the deputy mayor of Belgrade Goran Vesic was reading internal emails of our news team on an open press conference. That's an illegal act, but he did it. And that's the problem. We also have a situation for years and years going now that the president of Serbia, Aleksandar Vučić, is calling our colleagues at N1 Serbia CIA TV, because General David Petraeus, former director of the CIA, was once member of our board. Also, we have a situation that he calls our colleagues American TV or American journalists, because we had some part of stakeholders in our company from America. So those are all problems which we are basically seeing replicated across the region. And when it comes to Bosnia and Herzegovina, we also have that divide between two entities, between Federation and Republika Srpska. And also, one of the biggest problems is the situation with state-owned media, public broadcasters, because we have so many problems over there. It would take me several days to explain all the details what we are seeing here. But the key issue here is it's wonderful to have all colleagues from the Western Balkans. We can hear each other. I would like to have all 6 ministers here and to speak with them. And once again, Minister Vanchevski is very brave to be here, but also what he has said is showing me that he understands the situation here. I'm not sure that other ministers in the region are that much involved in a situation here in the region, and they care about what's going on with the media. And also, we should have more than once in a year gatherings like this with the European Commission and European Union to try to basically make a situation different for all of us. Because if we don't start changing something, I'm afraid that our colleague from Bosnia, Vladimir Kovačević, is not going to be a sole example of bad things which can happen in the region. And we know that we had those cases in Serbia and in Montenegro. Olivera was shot at by, I think, was last year or something like that. So we need to do more, and the politicians should be brave enough to come and talk to us, because we have a lot of to say. We ask hard questions, but when we are asked questions, we can provide very nice answers and probably solutions to some problems, not only in our industry, but across the spectrum, which is very important for us, because as much as politicians are public workers, we are also public workers, and maybe we know much more than what politicians know in the region. I have a different perspective on the Western Balkans, because I have lived in Canada for 8 years and I worked in journalism over there. So I know how much easier it is to work when you have a bit of regulation, what Minister Manchevski has said, but also a part of self-regulation, what Alfred said, but also a different culture and different respect for media industry and our colleagues who are working this very hard job. I often say that sometimes we are like miners. Once we go underground, we don't come for days and days till we find the end of the story.
Thank you very much. That's a metaphor I haven't heard before. Before I open the floor to questions, I hope some of you already have some questions. I know before I go, I want to turn to Elena to zoom out a little bit and ask you, how does this region look in terms of the OSCE commitments that some of the governments made? Are they implementing them? Has the OSCE also started to pay attention, more attention to the issue of media freedom? And what are some of the issues and trends that your office is the most interested in or concerned about here in the region?
Thank you, Valerie. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm senior advisor in the Office of the Representative of the OSCE on Freedom of the Media. And the reason why the representative could not come, and that would have been a perfect panel, but now we have a panel with 2 females, and one of them lo and behold, is a female, apart from the moderator, is that in fact he has been meeting high-level officials from one of the participating states in Western Balkans, speaking about media-related legislation. So that's why I had a chance of coming back to Podgorica. Secondly, I would want to comment on emotional abuse of having ministers here. I mean, if I were an interlocutor, as we call them in bureaucratic language, I would make a beeline to head of policy department, because ministers are fine, but minister is a public figure, a political appointee. The actual place where ideas are coined and presented to the government are policy department. So guys, don't make a mistake. Okay, now concerning the commitments, I mean, the representative, the current one and the previous one, who comes from the area and now is Council of Europe High Commissioner for Human Rights, have never let off in terms of media freedom. I think all we have been doing is harassing the governments and talking to politicians and media rights group. We also work quite productively with governments in terms of media legislation, and those present here representing governments can confirm that, and even those absent can confirm that. So we do reviews, we publish those reviews, we organize a regional conference, which we did this year in Sarajevo. Last year, actually, our regional conference where journalists and media rights organizations can complain in the face of politicians who are also invited, happened exactly when Oliver Lakic was shot at. Now, after this wonderful introduction, let me unpack some of the issues which have been talked about. First of all, what we have been talking about partly, and I'm happy I'm here because this is my topic in the office, is illegal content. Illegal content and what to do with that, and what is the attitude towards that. Illegal content, I mean, basically, even if we talk about hate speech, one has to keep in mind that some of the hate speech, no matter how disgusting, is not illegal. There is legal hate speech. And then there is illegal hate speech. And the crucial difference is incitement to violence. So if there is this element, then yes, since we're here in the area of parties to the Council of Europe, we can say that there is a 2008 document by the Council of Europe concerning hate speech, which requires that countries take action if there is this element of incitement to violence, there is a malicious criminal intent. That's number one. For the rest of it, concerning fake speech and dissemination of false information, the office has been calling to caution concerning that. We shouldn't criminalize that, because fake news, in as much as false information, it can be a mistake. Like a famous German publication, Der Spiegel, you know, since you're a journalist, you know of the scandal with Spiegel and the German media landscape earlier this year. So people can make mistakes in good faith. However, if this is done with intent, you see part of it is political speech. This is propaganda. And political speech is protected. That's another problem. So once you have to think what to do with that, you have to keep that in mind. Now, let me also talk about the politicians. The office and the representative have addressed the issue of rhetoric by politicians, which is getting rough. But at the same time, political speech is protected. We have noticed and we have commented on the fact that in the recent decade, there is more and more this kind of global prevalence of populist rhetoric, which may, and some of it is targeting journalists as a group, and this is where we're getting extremely worried and warn governments that something should be done about that. But I mean, we cannot prescribe to politicians how they talk to the media. We can just object to that. The third thing is regulation versus self-regulation. That's a very important topic concerning. I mean, there are certain types of speech which are criminal, and that's clearly regulated. However, concerning other types of speech and concerning algorithms and kind of massive spread of false information aimed at undermining democratic institutions. I suppose we're talking about this. We're not talking about that if 1 million people write at the same time something about the president of a particular country. That's very unpleasant, but that's not a big deal, in fact. Whereas if attacks are aimed at democratic institutions, at credibility of democratic institutions, it becomes a problem for the whole of society. There is definitely the tide has changed from self-regulation to actually regulation. And now you can see the journalists and politicians are fantastic people. I admire them because they have everything in their heads. I'm an advisor, so I have everything on the paper. And I'll have to quote David Kay, who is the UN rapporteur on freedom of expression, who recently wrote about the change in approach to regulating speech and concerning social networks, because we are primarily speaking about online media, right? We are not talking about the so-called heritage. It's not even mainstream, it's now heritage media. Ultimately, public rules and public institutions, especially the courts in democratic societies, must play a central role in deciding what is and what is not lawful. But that's not how it's working out. Governments flounder, politicize, and pontificate, often using the platforms to censor content, demanding takedowns that their own law would bar them from doing themselves. Demanding that platforms take down content that their own laws, democratic laws, would bar politicians from doing themselves. In Europe, public authorities demand that companies eradicate often vaguely defined online harms. They embrace a rhetoric of digital danger, feeding nicely into talking points for illiberal governments cracking down on online speech, which means, yes, I suppose the content moderation will come, but it should come from public institutions, from legitimately elected governments with a court oversight, lawful, that is defined by law, serving a legitimate aim, and open to appeal. So I think I should shut up because I could talk until tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for raising one of the very interesting points which hasn't been raised yet in our discussion, which is the role and power of social networks in regulating and governing a lot of how we speak. And this is something that the EU has been dealing with quite a lot, and it would be very interesting to hear the approach of some of the governments in the region to that. But maybe that can be one of the first questions. We've laid the foundation for an excellent debate. We have about 40 minutes, and I already see 3 hands, so let's go to these two, and then the third one here, and then we can come back for another round. Okay, you already have the mic. You're ready to go. Please. And I remind you the same thing I reminded yesterday. A question is a brief interrogatory statement followed by a question mark. So, thank you.
Hi, I'm Tanya Milevska from the Macedonian State News Agency. I have a question for the Macedonian minister. I have many questions and many remarks regarding what you just said, which is quite controversial. So you mentioned the possibility to take legal measures in terms of regulation. So could you be more specific, first of all? What do you mean? What kind of regulation would you foresee? And second of all, there are many things that you can do before turning to any kind of regulation, be the public broadcaster, which you haven't touched yet, but there will be another question from my colleague, which you can answer later. You can also, you talk about public being the best safeguard system or the level of personal integrity. Those are all areas that you can influence by taking other measures in other policies such as education, media literacy. So I'm not sure that this confrontational approach of regulating coming from the government is the best solution. Maybe a better solution would come from the parliament with a wider consensus. But the government, I don't think that that would work. And there are other ideas in terms of self-regulation that we are exploring inside the profession, such as a professional status for journalists. And maybe you could help by participating in those discussions rather than wanting to regulate. So thanks.
Thanks, Tanya.
Zhana Božinovska, Macedonia also, for Minister Manchevski. It sounds very good when you speak about progress in freedom of the media and reports and everything. And you said everything today, but you didn't mention public broadcaster. Macedonian television, I think it is the worst public broadcaster in the region. Dysfunctional, useless, I don't know what to say. I mean, which word to use, and you know it very well. And if you say that it is because of the opposition in the parliament, it is not excuse, I mean, for this regulation and for making things better. Why you didn't do anything? Because we know how it functions it functioned in last 10 or 15 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have a third question here.
We understand. Thank you very much for your panel. I think that it's very good to have one of the stakeholders, the representative from government, participating. Maybe in the future we could include also other interlocutors, such as representative of parliamentary committees and representative of civil sector and other players in the process.
That would be a pretty big panel. Sorry, don't forget to introduce yourself as well.
Yes, Radka Bečeva from the European Broadcasting Union. I have two questions.
Sorry, I don't think anybody can hear you. Can you talk closer to the microphone?
Radka Bečeva from the European Broadcasting Union. Yes, it would be a great panel, but I believe that it would be interesting to have on one table major stakeholders in the process. We understand that there is a work on changes of the media legal framework in Montenegro. I would like to ask Mr. Rutovic if he could elaborate how the ministry envisages the process, how the ministry envisages to make it transparent and to ensure adequate public debate, also adequate expertise. And I would like to just mention that European Broadcasting Union is foremost professional alliance of public service media in Europe, has a big collection of legal practices and best practices from 56 countries, and which could be useful in your case. And I have a question to Minister Manchevski. We spoke a lot about the independence of media and free media these 2 days. I would like if he could explain why this ministry was created at first place and what is the mandate, since it is very exceptional practice in democratic societies where print media normally is self-regulated and broadcast media is regulated by a regulatory agency which deal with audiovisual media regulation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Did I see one more hand in the audience? I think we can take one more question. Snežana.
Thank you. Snežana Milivojević, University of Belgrade. I'm sorry to intervene, but title of the panel was Policy Meets the Media. From all the comparative research in the Balkans, it's very clear that there is no distinction between media legislation, media regulation, and media policy. We are talking about media policy. Most of these countries copy-pasted the laws during their accession process. So therefore the mantra, the laws are good but they are not implemented, is something that we've been listening for years. So this is not a topic. Legislation, regulation, regulators are also recently developed independent, less dependent, controlled bodies that usually don't work. But this panel was about media policy. Media policy is a consistent government policy in the area of communication, media, public communication, whatever. And I don't see, I'm really surprised to see that the minister comes here with this dilemma. Should we regulate or self-regulate? These major policy issues are issues that are facing, the entire European community is facing very complex media policy issues. So if Western Balkans wants to catch up, we either have to be a part of this debate, otherwise we will copy-paste in 5 years again the old, more or less efficient instruments, and we'll start complaining again that we have perfect laws, but they are not implemented. So can we somehow see if the region has or is facing some policy issues that are common for the region and are a good, I don't know, reason to have these conferences and regular meetings that give us a platform to exchange experiences in the areas that are pressing policy issues.
Do you want to list maybe
Not now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I think we have quite a lot of different topics to jump off on. Minister Manchevsky, I think a lot of the questions were directed at you, so I will let you address them.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the good words throughout the debate. I just want to say, yes, you're scary, but you're not that scary, so I'm not that brave to be here. When we're discussing about, for instance, the situation in North Macedonia, again, mainly now the debate is focused on the online media, not on the heritage media. We used to have a lot of issues with the heritage media as well, but there has been some progress. So now the debate is a bit focused, not that we're not debating about, for instance, the public broadcaster, but about the online media. And no matter what we do or we don't, unless we have international coordination on this issue, we as a Macedonian government, we cannot do anything on ourselves, by ourselves. There are some things, although, we can do. And this is what I'm suggesting at the debates that we're having in terms of some kind of legislation around the online media, is that we should ask for them to have editors-in-chief, the ones that declare themselves that they are online media. Yes, it will not do much, because they will get registered then in another country and then publish in Macedonian or Albanian language for the sake of North Macedonia. But again, we need to do it on international level. We need to have legally responsible entity behind whatever is being published. And this is my opinion. Don't kill me about it. It's my opinion. Then another question was raised two nights ago when I had discussion with some of the journalists, Macedonian journalists. How do we provide access to journalists of the press conferences of the government? They asked me, can just anyone come in? The answer is yes. We have no filter whatsoever. And is this good or bad? We're discussing about the legendary register of professional media, professional online media in North Macedonia. This is the proposal. Now, one way to do this register, which will not be in a law, but the register that will be provided by the professional associations given to us, to the governments, and we can say, okay, These are professional media according to standards that the media workers have agreed upon, and we provide access to them. But until now, we were giving, and we're still giving, a chance to the self-regulation. And also, I strongly believe that education and media literacy is absolutely necessary and the way to go forward. But we will see the results in 10 years from now. So the question is, do we want to do something now and change something now, or sometime in the future? Maybe. My opinion is this is long-term. I'm not going to be there. I'm definitely not going to be in the position of a minister when the results are going to come from these long-term measures. You will have to stay and work in these conditions. So if I were you, on your place, I would ask for a bit of a more urgency and ask for results. Something that would be visible. Again, as I said, we and this government does not have the position that we are going to decide. I'm not saying we are going to do this. I'm telling you my opinion. I will be repeating it on every discussion that we have, and then again we will follow your decision on it. But there has to be a decision. The debate cannot be endless. We need to do, at the end of the day, something. Regarding the national broadcaster, I didn't mention it because I want to forget it. Yes, the situation is extremely bad. It has been. But yes, the only explanation is the opposition in the parliament. And it is because we are currently, and you have to admit it, alone in this fight. I don't see anyone in any other media mentioning the problem about the public broadcaster. We're only mentioning it when we're debating like this. We need to keep the pressure. Let me explain a bit. The committee that is deciding on the implementation of the law that has reflection on the national broadcaster in the parliament is under the control of the opposition. And we're the only country, I think, maybe in the world, that the national broadcaster is under the heavily political influence of the main opposition party. It has been since the time that they were in power, and it still is. So this is the other way around that we have with the national broadcaster. But let's ask ourselves, what do we want from the national broadcaster? Currently, we are investing, we are pouring in budgetary around 17 million euros annually in the national broadcaster, and this is what we receive as a result. According to law, in several years from now, it will be 30 million euros annually that will go into the national broadcaster. For what? For what standards? For what product? What will we get out of it? We're only focusing now in the debate when the law is going to get passed, when the law is going to get... The law is going to get passed in the parliament after we make additional pressure, all of us together. Because now we are being blackmailed to do political bargaining with the opposition. If you want that, I can have the law passed tomorrow. But you will not have the right people, the professionals in the national broadcaster. You will have our political representatives, ours and of the opposition. You will have political representatives there. This is why the law has not been passed yet. But if you want, it can be passed tomorrow. The opposition will love it. In one day we will resolve everything. But it's not the way to go. And I definitely do not agree with this approach. And at the end of the day, look, there are many countries that have more influential, less influential public broadcasters. In some countries, the public broadcaster is, well, symbolical. We need to agree what kind of public media we need. Do we need to invest in a poor country like North Macedonia? 30 million, yes, we put it in the law. But now, when I'm seeing the situation, I start asking myself. I start really asking myself. Just to explain, The question about the existence of the ministry. The ministry is of information, society, and administration. Unfortunately, about administration as well. And it's only the lawmaker. We have the regulator. The gentleman is sitting right next to you, the director of the regulatory agency. So we are only setting the legal framework, nothing else. We have no other authority or competences in the media sphere. Thank you.
I see
just very short
follow-up here.
Minister Manchevsky, we are not talking about broadcaster influential or not influential. We are talking about normal national television, and this one, I must say, is shameful. I mean, it is shame for the state. It is shame for the government. And I knew that you will say opposition. Yes, but you cannot blame always others. For every other issue, you had some plan B or some, I don't know, some exit. For this, no, it is not only opposition.
Sorry, I want to avoid, a full-on debate. If you have a follow-up question, then I understand. But
why always excuse on opposition? That's the point.
And also, you haven't been specific on what kind of legal measure you want to take in terms of regulation. What is it that you mean? What kind of measure do you want to undertake?
Before we do that, there was also a question for Mr. Rutovic, and I also see Mihailo, so I want to give him a chance before we give Mr. Rutovic a chance. So please, go ahead.
Thank you. I've heard on a panel that politicians use their platforms to say very bad things about the media, beginning from Trump and from Vucic and others. But I think we have a pioneer here in Montenegro, and I want to put the question to Mr. Rutovic. The president of Montenegro, or when he was prime minister also, but all the time, the boss of your party, calls the media mafia, rats that should be deratized, fascists because they write about the business of his son with the state. I wonder, since you are a very long time in the ministry, whether any of the ministers, current or former, do anything to tell the president that it's not right, because the ministry is also responsible for creating a favorable environment for work of the media, and the minister said something like that yesterday. So whether do you know that any of the ministers talk to the president about it? And the second question, what's your personal opinion about that? Should he do that or not? Thank you.
Thank you. So we have this question, and we also have the question, Mr. Rutovic, also from the lady from the EBU about why the government hasn't involved the local public broadcaster in the current debates about new legislation.
Hvala na pitanjima. Dozvolite prije odgovora na posljednja dva pitanja da se u načelu, u kategorijama i fenomenu složim sa uvaženom profesoricom Milivojević i da zajedno za prostor promatranja javnih politika zemalja Zapadnog Balkana, znači medijske politika, u kontekstu i konvergentnih politika, uložim koliko je moguće od Europske komisije, Savjeta Europe, OECD-a, svi nas pojedinačno napor da ne zaostajemo generacijski u promatranju fenomena izazova posebno digitalnog doba, jer uprkos najboljim namjerama i konkretnim praksama kada je riječ o zakonodavstvu, ova stvar se zakonito brzo mijenja i slobodan sam primijetiti svoj lični stav da u sudaru sa novim fenomenima i izazovima sa kojima se nalazi mnogo zrelija demokratska društva sa dugom tradicijom koja, posjetimo, nijesu imuna na mnoge aspekte problema koje smo čuli jučer i danas, nađemo ugao priključenja tretiranju tih fenomena koji će zakonito možda u nekom negativnom kontekstu koliko sutra biti potreba zakonskog ili nekog drugog, misleći samo regulatorno promatranje ovih pitanja, što će biti evidentno i teže. Evo, dozvolite uvaženoj koleginici Bečevi da, naravno, u ukupnom panelu ovo pitanje koje smatram visoko pozornim na agendi crnogorske vlade kada u pitanju normativni ambijent, kažem i sljedeće. Naime, Crna Gora je za sada jedina, ispravite me ako griješim, odnosno prva zemlja jugoistoka Europe koja je prihvatila analizu Savjeta Europe i Europske komisije sveukupne ekspertize medijskog i pratećeg organskog sektora koji obezbeđuje ambijent slobode medija, EUFREX. Na tragu te analize koja je promovisana 6. aprila 2018. godine u ovom hotelu, Vlada Crne Gore je usvojila konkretni plan, ne samo kao administrativno pismo, nego sa konkretnom realizacijom preporuka koje su notirane u tom tekstu, koje smo gotovo u cijelosti preko 90% implementirali u matični tekst. Radioaktivnosti na politikama EUFREX-a 2. Šta to u praksi znači? Nakon tog i takvog karaktera seciranih konkretnih politika u predmetnoj analizi, mi smo 2018. godine preuzeli aktivnost sveobuhvatne reforme medijskog zakonodavstva. Znači konkretno Zakon o medijima, Zakon o nacionalnom javnom emiteru i 2019. godine Zakon o audio-vizualnim medijskim djelatnostima. Sva tri zakona, pod punom odgovornošću kažem, pratila je visoka transparentnost i participativnost ovoga procesa. Šta to znači? Predstavnik akademske zajednice, civilnog društva, medijske zajednice, sindikata, svih zainteresnih pojedinaca i subjekata koji su bili po vokaciji predmet interesovanja ove teme, bili su učesnici ovog procesa. Možda na nivou simbolike, kako to djeluje kada dođemo kod medija. U nemogućnosti da se nacionalni emiteri sa nacionalnom znači frekvencijom komercijalni saglase oko zajedničkih interesa u grupi, pokazali su pojedinačno interes da svi budu u predmetnoj radnoj grupi. Naravno, to je ministarstvo i vlade prihvatili, to nam je dodatno bila, da kažem, i odgovornost i pozicija da razmijenimo aktualna pitanja ovog procesa. U nastavku tog pitanja pitali ste za međunarodne partnere, čitavi proces pratile su prethodne analize postojećih zakonskih tekstova, na tragu njih su radne grupe radile. Također, neposredno fizičko prisustvo, kada su to radne grupe ocijenile na određenoj sredokraći tog radnog procesa, ocjena postignutog progresa ili ne u datim politikama. Posebno važno, prvi put u Crnoj Gori, kada su u pitanju ovi i ne samo ovi zakoni, Vlada Crne Gore je zatražila i dobila dvostruku monitoring ekspertizu ovih zakona. Prvo u formi širokog nacrta koji je ocjenjivao Savjet Europe, OECD i tako dalje, drugi oblici nacionalnog organizovanja, da bi zaključno i u formi predloga ovih dana, evo upravo sam imao priliku da se jučer upoznam sa komentarima Savjeta Europe u drugom ekspertskom čitanju, izuzetno povoljnim i vrlo dobrim iz ugla usaglašavanja sa međunarodnim standardima. Da kažem, u kontekstu ovog i ne samo ovog pitanja o čemu je govorila, kažem, profesorica Milivojević u duhu i karakteru te politike, da sada ne bih ulazio, da kažem, zbog vremenskog ograničenja u seciranje svakog od pitanja, pristup je meke regulacije sa akcentom na snažnje etičkog kodeksa, profesionalizma i aspekata samoregulacije. Bilo bi možda nekorektno za čitavi presjek kada govorimo o Europskoj komisiji, da podsjetim kada govorite o izvještaju u Crnoj Gori, da je negativna kritička ocjena u svim redovnim godišnjim izvještajima od strane Europske komisije notirana prema samoregulatornom tijelu, odnosno niskim mehanizmima samoregulatornih tijela u kontekstu sveukupnog sistema. Time hoću reći, na tragu onoga što su bile prethodne ocjene Europske komisije, a ovdje su uvaženi predstavnici kolege iz Crne Gore, zakonodavstvo kao zakonodavstvo nije bilo predmet negativnih ekstremnih komentara kada je u pitanju sama prirodna materija pravnog poretka u Crnoj Gori. Nalazimo se znači pred definisanjem predloga za koje vjerujemo da će u relativno skorijim vremenu ići prema vladi, odnosno parlamentu. Čekamo mišljenje Europske komisije i u ovom dijelu mandatiramo 2018. godinu. Također smo i prva zemlja koja radi usaglašavanje, možda je to potpuno slučajan hodogram aktivnosti sa matičnom direktivom oktobra 2018. godine o ovome uslugama i na tom tragu kroz meku regulaciju, kroz snaženje svih principa javnosti i transparentnosti, kako oglašavanje javnih fondova od strane znači javnih organa vlasti u medijima, kroz zakonsku obavezu prikaza tih sredstava, unapređenje pluralizma i medija, zaštita ugleda novinara, uredničke samostalnosti itd. Pitanja sa snažnom pozicijom institucionalne, političke i financijske nezavisnosti regulatora za oblast audio-vizualnih medijskih djelatnosti su platforma oko koje smo se okupili. U krajnjem transparentnog procesa je bila itekako obaveza svih nas učesnika i vjerujem da to nije predmet i zona na koji bi iko mogao, da kažem, dodatno uprijeti prstom kao negativno mjesto. Iako ne sporim bilo koji komentar tog tipa. Nadam se da uvažena koleginica Ratka također o ovom pitanju dovoljno zna jer smo neposredno komunicirali. U kontekstu drugog pitanja koje smo govorili, o koje je danas ovdje riječ, dozvolite da kažem i ne samo po prvi put kada je ovo pitanje na dnevnom redu, kolegi Joviću da predsjednik je Đukanović otvoren čovjek i političar i da je ne jednom davao odgovore na ova i slična pitanja oko onoga što jeste karakter predmetnog pitanja. Ne bi davao sada sebi za prostor da parafraziram njegove izjave ili uzimam ulogu koju on kao i političar i čovjek u nebrojnim susretima sa medijima, medijskom zajednicom kaže ono što jeste. Nijesam u posjedu informacija da li mu ministri govore ili ne, oni mi se o tome ne ispovijedaju, niti sam imao predmetnu temu tog ili sličnog karaktera. Za mene kao službenika koji predlaže normativne politike zajedno jeste obaveza, jeste dužnost normiranja one platforme koja obavezuje političare kao javne ličnosti na toleranciju, na veću kritiku i odgovornost prema javnosti kao teren, kao platforma, kao odnos kada se govori o sferi javnosti. Znači na terenu onoga što jeste normativni ambijent, Crna Gora baštini visoke standarde afirmacije slobode izražavanja. No podsjetit ću da to nije praktična realizacija, nije samo stvar jedne grane vlasti ili jednog segmenta društva. To je obaveza čitavog društva i dozvolite da kažem o ovako predmetno postavljenoj temi demokratski nadzori, demokratska prošlost, kulturološka prošlost, politička tradicija su svi aspekti koji sumarno ulaze u kvalitet onoga što jeste ocjena rada jedne grane vlasti ili sumarno terena. Zaključno sa tim da mediji ne pretendiraju osim onoga što mi zaista dužno svakog demokratskog društva da budu kritički korektiv vlasti, da jačaju participativnu ulogu građanina, da sebe ne smatraju ni policajcima, ni sudijom, ni tužiocem. Hvala vam.
Hvala. I wonder if some of the other panelists would like to respond with their feelings about what was said. Maybe Asmira, looks like you have some. Okay, can we let the minister just to respond?
There is no concrete proposal. This is the idea. I'm keeping the same question to you. What? The answer should come from you. And whatever you decide and we all decide, we will do it. We will provide you with the grounds and the mechanism. Thank you.
I'll comment on several things, but first on what Professor Milivojevic has said. She's completely right. We need quality media policy in the Western Balkans. And you're absolutely right. And you correctly pinpointed problems here, what we have for problems. And we often mix up all those things. But there is a different problem coming from, I would say, this side of the panel. And I mean on a political side of the panel. Because in 90% of the countries in the Western Balkans, in WB6, we don't have a media policy, or we have it on a paper. If I may quote Prime Minister of Serbia, Ana Brnabić, she said in a recent interview, one of the few which she gave to N1 in Serbia, she said, I think it was a mistake that we sent media strategy to Brussels. That is basically you're killing your own work and your own strategy, and you're shooting your own foot, maybe both of them, if I want to be completely sincere about that. The other issue is that most of the politicians in the Western Balkans, they don't have proper advisors when it comes to the communication with the media. I'll say this openly. My office is about 5 minutes from the House of Parliaments of Bosnia and Herzegovina by car. And believe me, I can easily, faster get answer from Maja Kocijancic, spokesperson for the enlargement and foreign policy in Brussels, than the spokesperson of the government which sits a 5-minute drive for me. And that's the problem. And that's the key issue. They don't have a policy issue. We contacted so many times the member of the presidency from Republika Srpska, or even now chairman of the presidency, Mr. Komšić. And you know what they say? The one of them says, oh, I'm gonna see, and he never replies back. The chairman of the presidency, current chairman, Mr. Komšić, he sends a written statement. What I can do in a TV business with the written statement? Nothing. That's the key issue. They don't have a media policy, and that's the key problem for the entire region of the Western Balkans. And then there is a problem of selectivity when it comes to the approach to media. They go to those media which they are close to them or which are controlled by them, and they give them interviews, statements, all the informations, background informations, everything. And some media are struggling for years and years trying to get some politician to give us interview or statement or something else. I would also comment on this, what Mihailo has asked and what Mr. Perovic have said in his statement. Yeah, you're completely right that we can't be judges, prosecutors, or policemen, but there is absolutely no space for any politician here in the region of the Western Balkans or anywhere else, starting with the President of the United States, who have branded a journalist as the enemy of the people, to use such invasive rhetorics that they are describing journalists as thieves, spies, pigs, dogs, and whatever else was used in all these years. We also have a problem with the parliaments in the Western Balkans. I mean, things which are said about the journalists in the region of the Western Balkans are abhorrent. I mean, one of the examples, recent examples, is that we had the one MP in Serbia, Bojan Torbica, who was speaking for 25 minutes in a parliament and calling for shutting down our colleagues in Serbia. And nobody have stopped him. That's for 25 minutes. We in the media industry, we know how long period that is. And that was broadcasted on a national TV. So we need to start changing both sides. As much as we have our own mistakes, the policy side or politics side has a lot of mistakes, and you need to start changing it. As much as we are hard to ask questions, you have all rights to say no comment, but the comment which goes against us on that kind of level, it basically puts targets on our heads and backs. And that could be very dangerous in situations, for example, as it happens in Banja Luka with Vladimir Kovačević, or as we saw here in Montenegro or in Albania or anywhere else. And I'm gonna be completely sincere. I was absolutely stunned when I saw some statements by Prime Minister Rama. And he's not alone, unfortunately. So we need to start changing both sides.
Thank you very much. Thanks. We have less than 10 minutes left. There's one question, and then I will give to Alfred and Elena as well to make some concluding comments. But let's hear the last question since...
Good morning. My name is Paulina Desmivel, and I'm the spokesperson for Reporters Without Borders in France. It's a question for Mr. Jelko Rutovic, and I take the opportunity to ask you a question today because unfortunately we are not able to establish contact with your government. I listened to what you were saying, and the issue of journalists was also mentioned yesterday. And I'm not saying that there is no improvement in Montenegro right now, but one of the main issues for my organization and other organizations is the security of journalists, the attacks, the violence, and the fact that they are not able to do their job in proper condition. So my question is that since we are reaching the end of this conference, is it possible for your government to consider that a journalist shouldn't go to jail for his investigation? It would be the only one to go to jail if he's convicted again. Is it possible to respond to the attacks, to the violence against them? Because it's not only a question of public media and the reform, it's also a question of how they work and whether they can work in proper conditions with no violence attacks and these kind of threats. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pauline.
Hvala uvaženoj koleginici. Ako dozvolite, ako budete u prilici, zamolio bih vas da pogledate koliko je moguće ton rasprave od par dana u parlamentu Odbora za evropske integracije u kojem su visoki predstavnici vlade učestvovali. Direktor uprave policije, potpredsjednik vlade i ostali službenici koji su po vokaciji odgovorni za kreiranje nesmetanog i slobodnog ambijenta za rad medija. Jučer ste imali prilike da čujete političku ocjenu, izjavu i stav ministra gdje se kaže, a to je i stav i politika vlade, da nijedan predmet nasilja nad novinarima u policijskom, tužilačkom i sudskom smislu ne može biti arhiviran. I to je visoko na predmetnoj agendi vlade, odnosno države Crne Gore. Postići će se, a vjerujem da ste informisani o tom pitanju, da postoji visoka saradnja i visoka interakcija između matične komisije koju vodi predstavnik i urednik jednog štampanog medija u Crnoj Gori u kojima učestvuju predstavnici medijske zajednice, predstavnici nadležnih državnih organa kada su ova pitanja na dnevnom redu. Ovo nije samo ocjena iz reda ministarstva i vlade, nego u načelu i glavnim pitanjima kada odnos vlade i predstavnika same komisije. Znači, ova i ostala pitanja su visoko na agendi političke i svekolike odgovornosti vlade. O tome ne slučajno sam uputio, govorio direktor policije o karakteru određenih propusta, o određenim pitanjima i zoni preuzimanja odgovornosti koja je nužna kada su ova i slična pitanja. Ono što jeste realnost i što jeste znači nedvojbena politička i državna poruka da ni jedan od predmeta ne može biti arhiviran i ne može biti predat zapravo. Hvala.
Hvala. Elena, you wanted also to make a comment about this, right?
There was somebody asking for a question.
Oh.
So would you want to take a question or would you allow me to talk? What's the...
Why don't
Okay.
you make a comment and then we can have a last quick question. I mean, we have only 5 minutes, really.
I'll keep it very quick. I thank
You don't have to be
my
brief.
fellow panelists and Pauline for raising the issue of impunity and safety. So basically, last year during the Ministerial Council of the OSCE participating states, all 57, including, of course, the Western Balkans, there was a groundbreaking decision, 3/18, on safety of journalism. And I would advise you to go online and read it because it's very comprehensive. It's a brilliant document which protects you guys on from physical kind of manifestation of violence through cyber abuse, through female journalists, through surveillance, trolling, and the rest of it. So what I wanted to say is it is a political commitment. It's not a legal commitment. However, it is a commitment. So each government has committed itself to implementation of that. And the representative whom I represent here is asking to creating national groups which would log specifically crimes against journalists so that we could, unsensitizing, of course, law enforcement authorities, that is, but that has to be done also with involvement of journalist organizations.
Thank you very much. We have a last question here.
Okay, you hear me?
Oh, sorry, wait, one more thing before you, can you just repeat so that all the journalists here can Google MC18?
OSCE MC 3/18 on safety of journalists.
Thank you. Okay, please.
Okay, my name is Senka Vlatko-Ćodović and I'm journalist from Insider Belgrade. I will try to summarize what I want to say, so I will speak in Serbian if it is not problem. Dakle, interesantno mi je da nema nikoga iz Srbije, iz vlade, ne znam da li su pozvani, pa neka to bude prvo pitanje. I zašto se eventualno, da li postoji kakvo objašnjenje zašto se nisu pojavili. Ono što se ova 2 dana govori, nešto se razlikuje od dakle, svega što se u Srbiji događa. Mi kao da smo prosto prešli na stepenicu iznad. Pa bih samo ukratko probala da vam objasnim. Znači, u Srbiji postoji neka nepristojna simbioza između nacionalnih emitera i tabloida. To znači najgledaniji, najčitaniji su u nekakvoj, to bi za medijske prilike bila nepristojna simbioza. Znači vi imate situaciju u kojoj se neproverena, ekskluzivna ili poluinformacija pojavi u tabloidu i nakon toga je prenese odmah sve nacionalne televizije koje su na ovaj ili onaj način kontrolisane od vlade i onda se pozivaju ministri da te vesti komentariše, one postaju nekakva vrsta istine. Dakle, to je jedna potpuno nova, kako bih rekla, drugačija slika medijska u odnosu na ostale zemlje o kojima sam ovih 2 dana slušala. Imala sam potrebu to da kažem. Za one koji ne znaju, Insider 15 godina se bavi istraživačkim novinarstvom, mogli smo se nazvati, nekim vrstom pionira, evo tu je profesorka pa ne kaže u Srbiji istraživačkog novinarstva. I ja moram da istaknem jednu vrlo interesantnu stvar, to je mi ovde govorimo o kodeksima, samoregulacijama i sličnim stvarima. Možda bismo mogli početi da razmišljamo, i to je sad pitanje za ljude koji su ovde, i o tome da to nema veze sa kodeksom. Znači, osnovno ljudsko pravo Ustavom garantovano je da svaki čovek dobije tačnu i blagovremenu informaciju. Kada oni to ne dobijaju, a u Srbiji to vrlo često ne dobijaju, onda ispadne da mediji u Srbiji krše Ustav, a ne krše ni kodekse, ni kasnije krše kodekse i sve ostalo, a mnogo važnije je dakle ovo pitanje. I ono što je pitanje da li bismo uopšte mogli da rešimo celu ovu stvar ukoliko bismo ostali na stanovištu da smo svi novinari. Znači, moramo u jednom trenutku da kažemo, ne, postoje novinari, postoje propagandisti, postoji vest i postoji propaganda, pošto lažna vest, u mom mišljenju, ne postoji. Postoji laž i vest. Nisam sigurna da li postoji mogućnost da se tako nešto uopšte uradi. Nisam sigurna da li možemo, dok to ne učinimo, da rešimo problem, jer napadi na novinare su posledica činjenice da nemamo mogućnost da utičemo na široki, odnosno da dopremo do velikog broja ljudi zbog činjenice da su u stvari oni mediji sa nacionalnom pokrivenošću pod kontrolom vladajuće strukture. Mislim, i bez ikakve mogućnosti da se pojave vesti koje istraživački portali, a kamoli da to budu nekakve komentarisane vesti. Dakle, moje pitanje je, i to je pitanje koje vrlo često čujem, kako je moguće da to Evropa ne vidi, odnosno kako je moguće da dozvoljavaju da se tako nešto događa. Pa evo, moje pitanje je da li ljudi iz politike, evropske politike, to vide i da li išta može da se uradi? Odnosno, kako je moguće da ništa tolike godine, što je rekla profesorka, već 13 godina razgovaramo o ovim temama. Hvala.
Hvala. Pa nemamo mi, we don't have any representatives here right now from the EU to directly answer that question, but maybe some of the other points. Alfred, would you like to jump in about the suggestion?
I would actually like to say something about going back to the Albanian law, or rather draft. Zooming in, and that allows me to zoom out into the Balkans, knowing that the problems apparently are the same. And I want to do this also because there is some, I want to use the opportunity to influence, if I could, those that pull the strings, so to speak, and have the power or the means to influence, in this case, our Prime Minister, Mr. Rama. The law is, the draft is acceptable at most of its body, but it becomes unacceptable, and it becomes reactionary, and it becomes abhorrent, if we could use that term, when it provisions stuff like media portals are to be shut off if they are not in compliance with public morals. I mean, how can we define the public morals for one? Who can? I mean, public morals is something that we can all give different definitions for, and obviously that is a way for them, for whoever is in power today, Mr. Rama, tomorrow some other gentleman, to use this as a means of basically doing whatever they want to do with the media. There is another provision in the law which actually gives the power to make a decision on who is to be fined and who is to be shut down by a governmental body, which is AMA, Audiovisual Media Authority. It is. And that is something that's, I mean, government is using one of its bodies to regulate the media landscape. I would be fine if, for example, the School of Journalism, Public School of Journalism, was that body, and I think all the journalists in Albania would agree to that. Have the School of Journalism be the overseer, but not politically appointed public employees. Not to be offensive, but very low-level public employees, politically appointed. There is also another provision that actually allows the government, if the draft were to become a law, to shut down even New York Times. I mean, of course, not allow them to be read or accessible in Albania, not the proper New York Times in New York. And what does that say other than if there is a article that's criticizing of this government or the future government, they could, these employees or these people at AMA could, shut it off. So, I mean, I use this opportunity to actually beg those in power to try to pressure Mr. Rama. Let's have him discuss the law with the media people, with the stakeholders that are from the media, not with the governmental bodies, with NGOs. So we have a law, we regulate the landscape, but listening to those that actually inhabit the landscape, not those that want to use it for their power purposes.
Thanks. We have time for a few more brief concluding remarks if anybody has anything else they want to say or to respond to Senka's point.
Just one last remark. Basically, to give you tools in your dialogue with authorities, or polylogue with authorities, the Office of the Representative regularly commissions legal reviews, and they're published online. We first, as the gentlemen from the governmental bodies know, we first send them to the governments, but then we publish them. And the 3 reviews of the current draft Albanian law are published or have been published. So you can pick up, and we have a discussion on that, rest assured. However, if you want to use the arguments which are provided by our legal experts, you're most welcome to go online. Under the rubric media laws, you will find a compendium of legal reviews. And if you use it in your dialogue, we'll be very happy.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the panel, to thank especially the representatives of the governments who came, because this is the first year. This was one of the feedbacks from last year's conference, was that there was not enough opportunities to actually talk to policymakers and representatives from government. The organizers of the conference listened, so I encourage everybody also this year, if you have more feedback or more ideas about how to improve, to be sure to fill out the survey that you all received. But let's thank the panelists again. there was a lot to discuss. There's still much more to talk about, but we got started at least. So thank you very much. And Connie will come back to explain the last final act of the day. So.